There's definitely nothing light about this motherboard. Maybe visual aspect comparing to the original Taichi models, but this right here is the ASRock B650E Taichi Lite. And why did I mention there's nothing light about it? I think they only skimmed down the passive heatsink, the design and all the other stuff, even though it still looks quite amazing and does have that standard Taichi look, which will look definitely epic in your build. But regardless of the connectivity, the VRMs, the performance and everything else, it's outstanding. So, as per usual, as we do every single time, going to go through specs and then we're gonna jump into benchmarks. So what do we have here? Now listen to this. 24 plus 2 plus 1 power phase with enlarged heatsink armor. On the part where it goes towards the IO shield, it does have some empty space, so it could be a bit better when it comes to cooling, but this one does an incredible job regardless of that. 105 amperes SPS for V-Core plus GT, delivering definitely smooth and neat, I would say neat, yeah, power to the CPU. Then we have support for PCIe 5.0 SSD. It supports AMD Ryzen 7000 series, AM5 socket, chipset is B650 as I already mentioned. Memory 4 DIMMs for DDR5. Expansion slots, we have one PCIe 5.0 x 16 and one PCIe 4.0 x 16. Supports integrated AMD RDNA 2 graphics. Graphics output is USB 4 Type-C and one HDMI. For the storage, we have one Blazing M.2 PCIe Gen 5 x 4, two Hyper M.2 Gen 4 x 4, and 4 SATA 3. Audio is 5.1 channel HD audio Realtek ALC 4082 audio codec, ESS Sabre 9218 DAC, Vima audio caps, and Himic audio. Then we have Killer 2.5G LAN. Wireless LAN is Killer 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6E plus Bluetooth, and it's E-ATX form factor. So this is quite cool. Now we have server grade low loss PCB, and we have Killer Ethernet A3100 and Wi-Fi 6E AX1675 with Double Shot Pro, which provides much better network experience for gaming and multimedia applications. Now we have Lightning gaming ports, Polychron sync, and loads of other cool stuff. It's packed with 8 PWM headers for your fans. We have 3 addressable RGB headers, 1 RGB header. We have, of course, 2 8-pin EPS connectors at the far left top side and 24-pin for your motherboard power. USB 4 Type-C port at 40 gigabits per second. Of course, standard flexible integrated I/O shield, Nichicon 12K black caps, which are 100% Japan-made high-quality conductive polymer capacitors. Supports DDR5 non-ECC unbuffered memory up to 6600 OC, and maximum capacity is 192 gigabytes. Supports XMP and Expo memory modules. BIOS is 256 megabits MEUF legal BIOS with GUI support. For the integrated AMD RDNA 2 graphics, we have HDMI 2.1 TMDS FRL 8G compatible, which supports HDR HDCP 2.3 and maximum resolution up to 4K 120 Hz, and one USB 4 which supports HDCP 2.3 and maximum resolution is 8K at 60 Hz. Supports RAID 0, RAID 1 and RAID 10 for the M.2 NVMe storage devices. When I mentioned the 8 PWM headers, we have one CPU fan connector, then we have one CPU water pump fan connector and 6 chassis water pump fan connectors. So this is insane how many of these PWM headers we have. Then we have front panel audio with 15 micron gold audio connectors, 2 USB 2.0 headers which support 4 USB 2.0 ports, one USB 3.2 generation 1 header which supports 2 USB 3.2 generation 1 ports, and we have front panel Type-C USB 3.2 generation 2 x 2 header which is 20 gigabits per second. We have Dr. Debug with LED, power button with LED, and a reset button with LED. Honestly, as you can see, there's nothing light about this motherboard. It really is packed, especially as I said, with the connections, with the VRMs. literally everything. And I think with the BIOS updates you could go with even higher RAMs, but I'll have to check that out if there's a like revised version of BIOS so you can upgrade it definitely. Now what I did is, as per usual, and the only processor that is viable for this motherboard that I have is AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D. I placed it here, tested out, and we got these results. So first of all, let's check out AIDA64 system stability test, where CPU hit 88 degrees Celsius and the clock speed went up to 4825 MHz. GPU in this scenario is totally irrelevant when we're talking about the motherboard, but it went up to 47 degrees. Now, Cinebench R23. The thermals went from 78 to 81 degrees Celsius, which is outstanding, and the clock speeds from 4925 to 4950 MHz, and well, the benchmarks, of course, depending on the cooling, but in this scenario, it was Valkyrie Sin 360, 26,546 was the peak, and I would say that the average was 490, maybe 26,500, which is definitely an ascending Cinebench score. Of course, if I went with a bit weaker AIO, the score would be lower by 100 or 200 depending on the AIO or cooler that I'm using. Indigo benchmark, million samples per second in bedroom, 3.543. For the CPU, for the GPU, 18.213 million samples per second. Then supercar, CPU 7.918 million samples per second, and for the GPU 48.244 million samples per second. Memory, okay, here we go. Accelerate Mako DDR5 2x 16 gigs at 6000 MHz. Read speeds go up to 90,700 megabytes per second. Write speed 76,198 megabytes per second, and copy 100.74 gigabytes per second. Latency was 76.8. NCL of the RAMs was 40. ASSD, now benchmarking the SSD on the vertical position of the motherboard. Since that's the first slot, here I used the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus G 2 terabytes. Read speed in ASSD 6149.91 megabytes per second. Write speeds 3821.98 megabytes per second. Autodisk benchmark, consistency was there was literally no problem. Read speed 6.90 gigabytes per second, while the write speeds were a bit lowerish, 4.16 gigabytes per second. But I think this is more based on the SSD. Then we go to Crystal Disk Mark, read speed 7390.04 megabytes per second, and the write speeds 3545.76 megabytes per second. Corona 1.3 AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D finished up the render in 51 seconds, and the raise per second was 9,457,080. Now the Lite, I have to say this again, the Lite stands definitely for the design of the motherboard, because it does lower down the cost when we're talking and taking into consideration comparing past Taichi models and the X670E Taichi. Well, you've seen loads of X670E Taichi Carrara that I have and that I used in past reviews, and you can see that the design on it, the passive heatsink, the coolers and everything that you have on that board do look a bit more impressive than on this board. But regardless of that, you have nicely painted PCB board going into that Taichi design. You have quite outstanding passive heatsinks doing their job, especially on the VRMs. And I do have to say that this board goes, well, not in a extreme budget segment, but it definitely lowers down the price comparing to the standard full-grown, let's say, B650E and X670E, to give you guys a more stable and higher quality motherboard in terms of giving you a better price, and yet you still have an insane board. Definitely an insane board with loads of ports, loads of connections, great performance without a doubt. The only shame, and it still isn't a problem, because if you're going on this motherboard, you'll already have either a couple of M.2 SSDs. It only has 3 of those. So 4 or 5 compared to 3, yeah, but I wouldn't take that as a complete negative or a con or anything similar to that, because 3 M.2 SSDs in today's days for some is not enough, without a doubt, but for others it will be more than enough. So yeah, I'm just stating the facts and comparing to other Taichi models that you could take into consideration, and yeah, that would be all concerning the negative parts, right? Because this board is just insane. I do have to say that lately what I've been encountering with ASRock motherboards is quite positive. I mean, lately. Through all the reviews that I did, they did perform quite nice. I was quite pleased with the performance of each of the past motherboards, but this right here is something completely different. You get something in some sort of a budget segment, let's put it that way. I know it's not cheap, but if you compare it to other motherboards, it definitely goes into a cheaper segment, right? And then reliability. When we're talking about ASRock boards, I've been using them in loads of builds. This is the second or even third build that I'm using, the B650E Taichi Lite, and I haven't encountered any problems with, for instance, placing RAMs, clips, M.2 SSD covers, heatsinks, or any issues inside BIOS or Polychron sync even. Even though the application could have been done much better, I only encountered problems when we're talking about memory modules. So either you have to have a dedicated application to adjust the lights on your memories, for instance, like I had to have for Fury Renegade, or you could just go with something that is like PNY DDR5 Mako, and you can place them inside. They are detected instantly on ASRock Polychron Sync, and they work without a hiccup. So yeah, it's somewhere there to discuss which kind of memory modules actually work. That would be all for today. Big thumbs up to ASRock, and this time I'll give it a Best Buy badge. It's not a Best Buy in terms of when you go the lowest price and the maximum performance, but I would say that price and performance ratio with this motherboard for AMD is outstanding. And this is why PC Crazy Best Buy badge. It is an E80X motherboard though, and you'll do have to take that into consideration when we're taking the segment where you'll either have to have a different case, a bigger case, or you're already quite alright having a full tower case, or at least a MIDI tower that supports E80X motherboards. So yeah, that will be all for today, guys. I'll place the links for the B650E Taichi Lite in the description below, and you can pair it up with the processor as I did, AMD Ryzen 9 7900 X3D. So I'll place both links in the description so you could do the same pair up if you desire, of course, but I'll leave the choices up to you guys to decide. This is something just for you, so you don't have to scroll the internet too much. That's it. And finally, if you like this type of content and you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button and ring the notification bell for future content coming each day. Thank you. See you very soon, guys. Bye bye.